The objective of this video tutorial is to provide an overview of how to extract an unedited portion of video for edTPA submission. It is your responsibility to follow the guidelines and specifications found in your edTPA handbook, as this is the official document produced for edTPA candidates. You will need to clip your video to the specifications outlined by Pearson in your edTPA handbook. You will want to keep your edTPA handbook near you, as you will likely want to refer to it frequently. Each area has specific guidelines to follow with regard to the number of files to submit as well as the length of video to submit. Refer to your edTPA handbook for official information regarding all aspects of your edTPA, including video guidelines and specifications, as well as content requirements. If you have any additional questions or concerns regarding the edTPA, discuss them with your instructor as soon as possible. The edTPA is a detailed and timely assessment, and you do not want to waste time with unanswered questions. Let's take a moment to briefly review the video specifications. You are required to collect consent forms from all students and adults who appear in your video clips. This is your professional responsibility. Do not include the name of the state, school, or district in your video, and according to handbook guidelines, use only first names for individuals appearing in your video. Your submitted clips must consist of a continuous scene without any edits. However, you will need to use editing tools to extract a clip from the longer video you record. The use of titles, opening and closing credits, music, audio enhancements, or special effects are not allowed on your video clips. You are not required or expected to create a professional quality video. However, the quality of your video must be sufficient for scorers to understand what happened in your classroom. You and your students should be seen and heard on the video clips. Read your edTPA handbook carefully to be sure that the clips are the appropriate length and feature the teaching and learning emphasis for your specific subject area. It is recommended that you keep your video approximately 10 seconds less than the required time limit to prevent exceeding the limit. You are not required to use all of the time that is allotted to you. Your video must include what you need the reviewers to see. Use the time wisely. Think quality, not quantity. Do not include video for the sake of filling up time. Refer to your edTPA handbook to be sure that you are including the necessary components in your video, and discuss your concerns you may have with your instructor. As soon as you have completed clipping your video, upload your video file to the Live Text File Manager, then save a backup copy in another location. The free video editing software that comes with most computers is adequate for preparing and saving your clip or clips in a required format. Refer to your handbook for a list of these formats. There are PC and Mac labs in Ball Hall on the main campus, as well as on the Lambeth campus. You can refer to the university's website seen below for hours and additional lab locations. It is important to note that if you are submitting multiple video clips, you will likely need to repeat the clipping and exporting process to obtain separate video files for each of them, as separate files are needed for proper submission of your edTPA. Saving your video in an acceptable format is necessary for a successful upload. Refer to your edTPA handbook for a list of the acceptable formats. Also check that your file size falls within the guidelines outlined in your edTPA handbook. Do not delete the memory card that was issued to you. Follow the directions you have been given for returning your camera, equipment, and undeleted memory card. And finally, make sure that you remove all video off the computer that you use. Depending on the camera that you are using and the computer that you are working on, there are a number of ways that iMovie will identify and import your video footage. You will either import your footage from your USB cable or from your camera card. There are typically one of two ways that iMovie identifies video. You will likely either need to open up the iMovie application, which can be found on your desktop and looks like a star. If not, you can search for it on your computer. Once the application is open and your USB cable or camera card is in the computer, iMovie will locate your video footage. Another option for locating your video footage is to insert your camera card into the reader or plug your USB cable into the computer, and it will likely open up the iMovie application and locate your footage. In some cases, you may need to go through the iMovie application itself and find your video footage on your camera card or through your USB cable. And then you should have a screen that looks like this. As you can see, it says to select those that you are going to import. I would recommend being choosy here and selecting only the footage that you would like to edit from, as this can be a timely process. So as you can see here, I deselected the 3 seconds and the 1 second, and I selected the 22-minute footage because that's what I'm going to clip from. If you like, you can also do this, check all, and if you're having a difficult time with that, it might be that this is on automatic and you'll need to select manual to do this part. So I'll deselect these two options, and then I'll import checked. Okay, right here what we'll do is we'll create the name of the event, and I'll say edTPA clipping. Okay. We'll import large. Okay, and down here it's going to give you the number of clips that are importing and an estimated time. It'll kind of go up and down, but it'll give you an idea, and depending on how much footage you're putting in, you may want to take this moment to work on some of your writing. And I'll be back to you in just a moment once this part of the process is done. Okay, so as you can see here, my screen says that it imported 22 minutes and 9 seconds from one clip, just confirming that the import is complete. What I'll need to do is click OK, and it'll close that. And at this point, I can just make sure that I'm pleased with the selection that I made as far as importing, and if I am, I will click Done. And it'll take me to this screen here where the clip is shown in the bottom right hand corner. At this point in time, what you'll want to do is refer to your edTPA handbook and just refresh yourself on all of the outlined guidelines for you, just to make sure that you're aware of everything you need to consider when you're clipping your video before you get started. Okay, now that you've reviewed your edTPA handbook and making good choices and refreshed yourself on all the guidelines that you would need to consider while clipping, we're ready to get started. As you can see in the bottom right hand corner is the clip that I imported just a few moments ago. If I'd like to make it a little bit smaller to see what I have to work with, I can move this slider in the bottom right hand corner to the right, and if I'd like to expand it, I just do the opposite and move it to the left. Okay, so what we would do is, say about halfway through, I'd like 2 minutes time. If you click here, it creates a yellow box for you, and you can expand it. As you see, the number to the right is growing, so the 18.6 means it has 18.6 seconds. So I want to go there, and I grab the right side, and I can scoot down. So that's 1 minute, 140, and 220. I recommend going a little bit larger because I'm going to show you how to fine-tune this in the upper left-hand side in just a few moments. Another thing you'd like to consider is, say you viewed your video and decided that you needed to clip off the first minute. So what you would do, because it doesn't necessarily timestamp in the traditional way that you would think, create a yellow box and have it contain 1 minute. We'll go a little bit less. And then what you would do is move your cursor just to the right of it and click right next to it and create the box. Okay, so let's include 1 minute here. And we'll go just a little bit larger. And I'm going to move it to the upper left hand side and show you how to fine tune your footage in that area. Okay, so what you would do is, once you've created the yellow box containing a little bit more time than what you would like, you click in the middle of it and drag it to the upper left hand side. Okay, once you do that, as you can see, it has a marker down here that shows where you grabbed from. Let me do this one more time and show you, because this is your working area, and down here is your storage area. So if by chance you work up here, you're not damaging what it is that you imported initially. So we can delete what we have in the upper left-hand corner, and the footage still remains in the bottom right. The orange line disappears, but the footage is untouched. So let's create that box again. It will contain just a little more than 2 minutes. Okay, and then we'll grab it and drag it up here. Okay, and then I'm going to show you how to work in the upper left-hand side in just a moment. Okay, and I'm going to show you some of the features that we can use to fine-tune the portion of clip that we're going to submit in the upper left-hand corner. Keep in mind, though, that we're supposed to be submitting raw footage, so though iMovie has many features that you may want to learn about in the future, just for today's purposes, what you're going to be doing is clipping raw footage that's unedited and unenhanced. So let's click on this clip right here. As we said, it's 2 minutes and 1 second. If you'd like to watch it, and I recommend you doing so just to check that it is what you wanted to include, and listen for your sound, and also you can go over your guidelines and just make sure that you are covering all of what you're expected to cover for your edTPA submission. Put your cursor wherever it is that you're interested in watching, and then you can click the space bar and it'll play your clip from that area. Then you can click your spacebar again. Say I wanted to keep that portion, cut that portion off. I clicked my spacebar and the red line marked where I stopped. So you just grab the yellow, drag it up to the red line, and then you can go to clip and trim to selection, and it'll trim off that beginning portion. So that's one way you can fine tune your clip in the upper left hand corner. Okay. You can do that on the other end as well. Say we wanted to, and if you want, you can use that same, place your cursor anywhere in the middle of the video and press the space bar as well. At this point in time, you'll also want to check your audio, because that's something that cannot be enhanced. And if you have any issues, you can try to select another portion of clip or speak to your instructor just to be certain that everything you'd like the reviewers to hear in your video and see in your video is there. Okay, so we're watching the video. And let's say we want to move to here. Okay, and okay, we want to trim it to there, so we click on the yellow and just drag it in when he's basically walking out of the camera, so we don't need that. And we do edit, clip, trim to selection. Okay, and it still tells it's 1:44. As you can see, it's still telling us the amount of time contained within the yellow box. Okay. Okay, and remember that you'll need to repeat this process for each individual clip if you are indeed submitting more than one clip to your edTPA. And once you're happy with the clip that you've selected, this is the time just to double check that you've covered everything you need to as far as edTPA guidelines, that your audio and video are to the quality that you would like, and then check your time as well and make sure that you're falling under your time allowance, a few seconds less, just to save yourself from running the risk of running over the time. So what you would do at this point is you would go to Share, Export Movie. Okay, and you would name this as something that will remind you which clip it is, especially if you're doing more than one. You may want to put your name on it. Okay, especially if you're using one of the lab computers. And then choose where you want to send it to. Make sure you select medium and then click export. Okay, and it'll give you an estimated time at the bottom of this box. It'll vary and it may jump up and down a little bit, but this is a perfect time for you then to refresh yourself and prepare for additional clips if that's what you're going to do, or to work on some of your edTPA writing. And this time, though it might be time consuming, isn't quite as long as when you import it, because think about the fact that you're cutting down your footage. So I would stay fairly near the computer, keep your eye on it, and just work on something in the area. Okay, and just a few reminders. This clipping and exporting process will likely need to be repeated multiple times if you're submitting more than one clip. And once you've exported your clips, you need to upload them to the Live Text File Manager and then save them in a backup location. It's recommended at this time that you check your file type and file size just to be sure that they're according to the specifications that are outlined for you in your edTPA handbook. And I also recommend that you download a copy and view your video, and if you have the ability to, I would do that on another computer just to be certain that everything works fine before you turn in your camera. And then make sure that you delete any video off of the computer that you're using. And then do not delete your memory card, and return your camera along with memory card and any equipment that you have according to the guidelines that you've been given by your instructor. The following are a few commonly asked questions. Number 1, if my camera cuts off unintentionally, does that create a clip end? Yes, unfortunately, once a camera stops, even if it's briefly, it separates one continuous strip of video into two parts, and in other words, two clips. Number 2, my volume is difficult to hear. Can I enhance it? No, unfortunately, you cannot edit your video in any way. You are required to submit raw footage. This includes your audio. You will need to determine if the quality of your audio is sufficient enough for a reviewer to pick up on what they need. If not, you may need to select another portion of video. Number 3, how close to the time limit do I need to get? Just enough to cover all that you are required to cover in your video without going over the limit. Remember quality, not quantity. And remember that it is recommended for you to seek to run 10 seconds short in order to prevent from accidentally going over your time limit. Number 4, do I need to erase my camera card? No, do not erase your camera card. Number 5, what do I do with my camera and equipment once I'm done? Please return all of your equipment, including your unerased camera card, according to the instructions that you have been given by your instructor. And finally, if you have any additional questions or concerns regarding the edTPA, discuss them with your instructor as soon as possible. For official information regarding all aspects of your edTPA, refer to your edTPA handbook, as well as your copy of Making Good Choices, a support guide for edTPA candidates. Information contained in this presentation was adapted from Making Good Choices, a support guide for edTPA candidates, and the learning graphic was adapted from the edTPA handbook.